Thanks for joining us today on The Perfect X. My name is Sherry, and this is my co host, Leigh.
Hello.
And today we are talking about dating questions that we've received. So we're going to answer some dating questions.
Very
Are you ready
exciting.
for
Oh, I'm ready.
this? Do you want to read the first one or should I go?
You go first.
Okay, it says, what? Oh, and these have been sent in just so we let everyone know. And you're always welcome to send us in questions. We have an email address called theperfectx@hotmail.com, and it's just X, like the letter X. It's not spelled EX. You can also message us on Instagram if you have questions, and that's the perfect underscore X, again, the letter X. So these are questions we got, and here we go. Okay. What is a normal time frame before asking someone to move in with you? What did you do? How long?
Man, like it's so difficult. Like it's so circumstantial, but yeah, like I've seen a couple cases that where people have moved in like a bit soon, and I think it takes quite a while to get to know the person. I would say at least a year. That would be my thing.
Oh, really?
Not that I went by that. I moved in with Taryn like way earlier, but do as I say, not as I do.
Well, actually, so it is circumstantial. I think for me personally, I think within 3 months, I would want to know whether I would want to move in with someone at this
You
age.
yeah, yeah,
At 37, I'm 37. In my 20s, I would definitely say like well over a year.
yeah.
Um, at, but at 37, I would definitely say 3 months is like would be what I would be expecting. Again, circumstantial, but something you said, like, I don't think you can ever really completely know someone because people change. So I know people who've been together for like 10 years, they move and get married, they get divorced a couple months later. And I know people who've been together for 3 months, get married, and they've been together 20 something years later. So I think it just people can change, and sometimes you change apart and sometimes you change together. So there is really no guarantee. So that's why the time doesn't really matter as long as it feels natural.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we were at. Like it felt like I mean, it was there was also factors where like we were both looking for somewhere else to live around that time too. So that it was kind of like we may have waited longer if the circumstances were different, but we both needed to move anyway. So we're like, oh, we may as well move in because we're both looking for a place, right?
Exactly, and there's no guarantee. Like, you guys could have moved in 3 years, and it would have been the same outcome or different, you know?
Yeah, and I
So
think a
I
lot of the stuff we talk about is like that. It's so case by case, but there's no harm in like most of my positions is always like there's no harm in like waiting a bit longer, but rushing in can have consequences. But waiting is far less consequences typically. I think.
Yeah, yeah, you are right. There are less, I mean, obviously, because you have more time to get to know someone, but
Yeah, if there's no rush,
yeah.
the only thing I mean, maybe if somebody's lease is coming up due and they're like, "Well, do I do another year here or do I move in with you?" You're like, "Well, I'm not going to make them wait one more month and then say, "Oh, just move in with me," and then you got 11 months at the other place you got to deal with, right?
Yeah, yeah, no. I think 3 months for me is good, personally, because I think, like, at my age, I know myself so well. Um, if something fits or doesn't fit within I don't wanna waste more than that much time with someone, and if I'm in, I'm all in.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard with like the older you are, I think you're more sort of established what you like and set in your own ways. I think it would be
Mhm.
the older you are, like I'm taking like the opposite approach where like I'm saying that to me the older you are, the longer I would wait, just because you can see how different. Like I have some friends that are single and they're very much set in their way. You know, they like their routine, they like things where they put them and whatever. And I think the older you get and the longer you're single, the harder it would be to sort of like mesh with somebody else. So I would wait longer the older I get, in my
Well
not so expert opinion.
what you said is very, very true. So, like, for instance, I've been single for a long time, and so is my best friend, so I see it in 2 people. I have a couple guy friends, like, so I'm just bringing up the opposite sex. They're set in their ways. One is, like, much more flexible, but he did give like, he was with someone for a long time, and then he just got single again, so he maybe that's why it's only been a year.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I've been single for many years, and same with my girlfriend. I do agree, we are definitely set in our ways, but it's kind of like I haven't liked someone, and I can say that for a few people I know, they haven't liked someone for so long. If I found someone that I liked, I actually had feelings for naturally, and they felt right to me, I expect them to have different natural ways of living, and I would try to work together to accommodate much more because I'm older, because if I just like someone, it's a miracle. So so
Yeah, I feel like
but
that yeah, like some people are easier to just like mesh together too, right? Like some people are not fussy and they don't really aren't
I
that
am
picky, right? You
fussy.
know? Yeah.
But the thing is I am fussy, but I would expect that we would have to work together to find a way that we're both happy living in the same circumstance. Otherwise, what's the point? Like if it's not gonna we can't make it work in 3 months, how are we gonna make it work in a year? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's how I see it. But exactly your point. Like it's just that I am set in my ways and I will give in a bit because I haven't liked someone. So if I do like someone, I do want to give in a bit to a point that I still feel I'm living what I type of life I want.
Mhm.
But if I can't find someone that can also be part of that type of life, then there is absolutely no point, you know? So I'd rather know
Yeah.
right off the bat than
Yeah.
but
I
that's
mean,
that's where
so
I head
you
out.
know, like you feel like you could I mean, have you ever lived with anybody? Like a significant other?
Yeah, but I've never lived with someone where we don't also have like I lived with someone in a sense of like he had his place and he had an office, but he stayed with me all the time, like to a point where like he never actually slept one night in a year in his own place.
Mhm.
So I've never lived with someone where there's like all their stuff is in my place and that's it. So I've kind of I guess can't say officially lived with someone like I paid the bills.
But pretty
I had
much,
a
yeah.
I had a guy move in with me, and within like 10 days, I kicked him out. So he wasn't also, and I actually kicked him out after 7 days. But he stayed an extra eight, nine, 10. I had to can't count, but
That must have been
three.
a fun 3 days.
You know, it was really weird because he didn't live here. He moved out to LA to be with me, and our plan was to move in together and live together. And like, it was so funny because I had a group of guy friends that all were like, "Oh, this is we give it 2 weeks. We give it 2 weeks. You get rid of everyone after 2 weeks." I'm like, "No, this guy's so different." But it wasn't you once the moment he all of a sudden felt like this is his place and he was so alpha and like and I like an alpha guy, but he was so arrogant, he was so rude to people. I was like, oh dude, this is not gonna work. Like there's no I can't accommodate like none of this is gonna work. And he wasn't that way towards me. He was like that towards everyone around me. Like
Yeah.
he even went to the office, like we were waiting to get a two-bedroom in the same building because I didn't want to leave the building. All my friends live there.
Mhm.
And I'm also friends with the people that worked in the leasing office. And he went down there like so fucking rude, like, find us the two-bedroom. This is taking too long. Well, I mean, someone has to move out for us to get it. Like, it's not like,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
had first dibs and he was like yelling at them. And then, my friend that worked down there, like told me, like, she's like, what the fuck are you doing with this guy? I was like, I know. So like, yeah, 7 days. But what's weird is the moment I told him it's done and he needs to leave, he's like, all right, well, do you mind if like I wait a couple he was thinking like I would change my mind, but he's like, "Oh, like I'm supposed to go to Vegas to meet up with friends for like I don't know what." And he's like, "Can I just stay till then?" And I was like, "Sure." And then he went back to being completely normal. Like
Hmm.
it was like flip the switch.
Oh,
But
yeah. Well, what was the
yeah,
situation before you guys moved in? Like, you were dating long
he
distance?
lived in a different state. Yeah. He lived in a different state.
So how did you meet him? Did you spend time with him in person before?
Not really, no,
Oh, my
and
word.
Tinder. But we had spent months on the phone, and, like, everything about him, he had a sense of humor, and also, to be honest with you, 100% honest with you, I was, like, kind of getting to the stage where I didn't really enjoy, like, serial dating as much anymore
Mhm.
and partying as much anymore, and I think I was confused on, like, what the next step would be, like, there is an in between, and you have to be patient with yourself and kind with yourself and understand that, like, most of us who've been single and having fun and dating and blah blah, like the sometimes you can't just jump into a relationship after like you need a moment to like get used to being around someone more or like be more accommodating or like how then you have to envision like what type of thing you actually want and like I knew I didn't enjoy clubbing as much anymore but at the same time I didn't want to like sit around and do nothing so I didn't really know who and where I fit in and
Yeah.
instead of like trying to figure myself out I was just like well I'll just jump into this situation
But like you say,
because
what's the middle ground if the guy's moving, like, from another state to, like, date you? Like, what are you gonna make him get his own place? Or, like, what's the I get that
exactly
side of it too, yeah, but
exactly. So I let him move in and we didn't say like, okay, 100% we're going to do it. Like the point was you come here and we'll figure it out, like either we'll see if we're like we actually get along really well and then we'll get a two-bedroom or maybe like I don't want to jump into a relationship so much. But then he kind of like on day two was like already looking for the two-bedroom and then I was like like, very quickly, like, what the fuck is this? But the last 3 days we got along so well. It was so crazy. And he went back to like this super easygoing, kind person. I think he like wanted to piss on his territory, and I realized I didn't want a relationship and I want to be peed on.
That's a long way to. So he moved all the way there. He didn't even like get to unpack.
No, no, he didn't. Oh my god, I had nowhere for him to put his stuff either. That was the funny thing. Like, I have so much fucking clothes. I have a two-bedroom now, and only because I have two walk-in closets. And homeboy, that place was a really big one-bedroom. It was just under 1,000 square feet. It had a lot of closet space, but like he couldn't even hang one shirt. And he was so mad at me every day. Like, are you gonna make room for me? I'm like, where? It's not like there's like another closet like hidden in this apartment that I'm
This is a
like not.
crazy situation.
Yeah,
It's a pretty
yeah.
dark situation when I'm the voice of reason, and which should never be the case. But I get what you're
I
saying.
had
Like, what's the middle? Like, what was the middle move? Like, I mean, he maybe should have moved there and like got a place of his own, or like I don't know. That's a huge
I
thing
the
to
weird thing is I wouldn't do it any way different though. I
like.
wouldn't have done it any way
He could have
different. I
come for
feel
the
like I
free. He could have come for the frigging weekend and been like, "Oh, this isn't going to work." But he packs up and moves there. I mean, what do you got
yeah,
going on? Like, Jesus Christ,
yeah, yeah, a one-way ticket.
I don't know
I
what.
know,
Yeah,
but I wouldn't have done it differently because I thought the experience was so fun and taught me so much about
I'm
myself, and
sure
it
you
taught me like
did. Like, she fucking guys on the Greyhound. You're like, well, that didn't work out.
no, he took a Southwest flight to Vegas.
What a poor
He took
bastard. He gets out
a
here and you're just like,
$49
I don't really
$40
see
flight.
this panning out for me. You're gonna have to fuck off kindly.
The worst thing is because I at the time I had like two guy friends that it was so random. I met them both separately,
Mhm.
and they ended up both moving into an apartment building. It was the same apartment building, and they become friends and like whatever. And there was like some running bet about like 2 weeks was the latest, I guess, or like no, there's 2 weeks or like a month.
Mhm.
And I didn't even last like really technically I ended in 7 days, but he was gone in 10. And they were like laughing. They're like we even expected a little bit better out of
No,
the
yeah, no,
situation.
that's longer than I would have given it, but it's yeah, I get what you're saying. I just like what would the middle ground. I don't know what people who sort of like someone I know, his mom, they got divorced later in life, and she met a guy online, and I don't know how the dating thing went, but she ended up moving out east in Canada to live with him because he had his own house out there, and it's probably cheaper out there, and whatever. I don't know what her decision making was about for going that way, but she I don't know if there must have been some dating back and forth before she decided just to pack everything up and move across the country. But I don't know, maybe not, right? Yeah.
I think you should. I definitely think you should have some dating back and forth. I think that I made a big mistake not doing that. I definitely agree with that. I mean, given it was like Christmas time, I was gone for like almost 3 weeks. Like we didn't really have time for like that. Like
Yeah.
we
Did
just
he
kind
quit
of
his
jumped
job and
into it.
everything, or what was he?
He already worked from home.
Oh,
So
that's
even
good.
though,
Yeah.
yeah, even though back in the day, like, that was very rare. He already did. He worked for himself. I don't even really like to this day understand what he did, but he does have like he's successful. Like he's from what I saw before on Instagram. But
That's interesting.
you
He
know,
obviously has terrible decision making abilities. Like he nothing
yeah,
against you, but you think he'd come out for the fucking
swiping.
weekend or something first, right? Yeah.
But it was swiping on me. I think was the first
I don't know
decision
what you
making.
got putting people drugging people or what you got going on over there, but yeah, like your fucking guys moving across the country. Holy Moses.
I don't really have much to say about it, but I would never have done that for my personality because I don't really get caught up and like get upset and like heartbroken. Like I do, like sometimes there has been guys that I like. I'm like, oh shit, I wish that worked out or whatever. But I love experiences so much. I really enjoyed what I learned for myself. Like I was like, oh okay, well, like I might be. I don't know if I was becoming 30 or I had turned 30, but I was like, I don't need to rush into something. Like I don't even want kids, so being 30 is no big fucking deal. Like that's some Hollywood bullshit timeline and I'm good. Like it really was an eye opening and it was a quick 10 days. Like,
No
you know,
doubt.
at least I didn't drag it on for months or years. So I was cool with it. I enjoyed the experience. It taught me something about myself and I have a funny story now.
Yeah, no kidding.
But all right. So same question. What is a normal time frame to ask someone to marry you?
See, I'm the worst person to ask for all this stuff because I have I've it's like I just said, it's like do as I say, not as I do.
Wait, how long was it for you?
Oh my god. Let me think. It was like maybe like 9 months we were together, something like
That's
that.
okay. I mean, you were
Yeah.
young for 9 months. It's, like, shocking because you guys are great and stable and you work on it, and that's fantastic. Because usually people at your age that got married will be divorced. Like, they say married in 20s, divorced in their 30s, but you guys, like, you're healthy people that
Well,
work on it, which is
I think
great.
everybody thinks going into it, it's going to work out. Like nobody goes into it thinking it's not going to work out. But my position would be like, I would date someone a year before I move in with them, and I would date them. I would live with them for 2 years before I'd ask them to marry me, or maybe date them a year and live with them for a year or whatever. But that would, if I was giving advice to somebody else, I would say like I would certainly live with the person for a year, and I would certainly date them for 2 years before I would consider like getting engaged. But that's I didn't do
See,
either.
again
I didn't do either of those things. So
well, see, again, I would say that for someone in their 20s, even late 20s, I wouldn't say that for late 30s. I think, again, same I have the same perspective. Like, I hope that if I'm with someone and we're living together in 3 months and married at the latest at 6. But that's for my personality. But again, I also know people that, like, they were with someone. I actually just know a guy that broke up with someone after years of being with them and living with them, and then met somebody else, and not at all what he thought was his type, but ended up being completely his better match and better for him.
mhm.
And he got engaged very, very early, and now they're married. He's so fucking happy, and he told me, he's like, I was never that happy in those years with the other one. And I thought it was really interesting because the reality is it worked for him and it felt right, but he's much older. He's in his late 40s. Like,
Oh
he
yeah.
knows himself. He knows what feels right. And I remember everybody in our group of friends were like, "Oh, this is too early. It's too early." And I was like, "No, if it feels right." Like, it didn't ever feel right with the other girl. He never The other girl kept pushing to be married and all that kind of stuff, and he kept being like, "No, I don't know. It does Something feels off." And this he never said that with this. And I'm like, "You're old enough to know, and you're old enough to know yourself. You've worked on yourself. You are the person that you feel you're comfortable being." Not that we were ever like an ending project, but I
Yeah.
I think he's the happiest I've ever seen him, and I've known him for like 10 years.
Yeah, it's probably the age is probably a factor, like you're saying. If you're, you're probably more self-aware as you're older, and there's probably some a bit more, I don't know, urgency or whatever. But yeah, I certainly would think people are way more aware of themselves and way more, it'd be easy. I could see it being a faster timeline the older you get in that respect. That does make sense.
I think it depends really also too, like, on self-awareness. Like, I know for me, like, I constantly wanna be growing, and so a lot of people around me will call me out, and I'm like, "Oh, thank God, like, now I know this about me and I could work on it," and I wanna be with someone like that, and so if I find someone that I enjoy my time with, and he's always growing and I'm always growing and we can work on growing together, then why wouldn't I want to move forward with them, you
Yeah, I think
know?
like Taryn and I always clicked. Like like there was normal like sort of disagreements, but like it was definitely like we both wanted to. We're not like toxic people. Like we both wanted to like settle down, get a place, do whatever. Like it wasn't like a
Yes,
total polar opposites. Like one person wants to travel the world and one person wants to settle down. Like so like you say, I think pretty early on, being older, I think pretty early on that where you're at in life and what you want to do and that kind of thing. And plus, you probably got a career going and that kind of stuff in the 30s, right?
exactly,
You're a
exactly.
little bit more grounded and a little bit more like set up, whereas when you're young, everybody's just doing whatever they want, going wherever they want, right?
That's exactly it, and I think also when you're younger, you think you know everything. When you're older, you're like, "Oh, I don't fucking know anything. Let me figure it out. Let's figure it out," you know?
Yeah.
So that's really important. All right, third question. How many standards is too many when trying to find the one?
How
Ooh.
many or what kinds of standards or how many standards? Yeah, I don't know. Like you tell me, Captain Picky, like, oh, he's got his fingers are too long. Next.
I like long fingers.
I
Not
don't
the little
think,
short,
I
chubby
don't,
fingers.
yeah, I don't think, I never really had like any
Standards?
particular, like, some people are like have their certain things they like. Like I've said before, I don't really have a type or like,
I was just gonna say, even I'm thinking about your ex-girlfriends and your wife, they don't nothing looks alike.
yeah, yeah,
And they're not even personality. I mean, I'm not that close with Taryn, but I knew the other one really, really well. And
hmm
from what I see from Taryn, I don't see any resemblance personality wise. So that
yeah,
they're both nice people. Oh, but the other one was so like like she could have used some salt in her personality, like a little, a little
yeah,
bit
yeah.
better. But Taryn has so much personality. Like, yeah, they're very different. You really don't have a type.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm not. I'm not terribly picky with anything like that. I can't like as far as standards go. I just like the normal
What
ones,
feels?
like a good person that I can get along with and whatever. But like beyond that, I don't think I have too much. I'm not a religious person, but like if somebody else was, I don't have like an issue with that, or and that anything like I can't think of anything too many things that would be like a total deal breaker for me, right?
So I actually had to learn this the hard way. So I think I've had way too many standards
You
to
don't say.
date. I
Color me
mean,
surprised.
one of them is a private jet, which I recently decided is a hard one to
Yes, I think
find.
that might be a bit of a reach. Not that if anybody's got them, they're probably living in California, so you're halfway home.
That I know, like I first I felt like the like you know people just everyone had a private jet, but but apparently it's not a thing, and
No,
so
yeah. Well, who knew? Yeah.
um, but I actually had to realize that trying to find every part of my standards, and it was ridiculous. Like I just think that everyone should have 3 to 5, and they should be personality wise specific to things you won't tolerate. And that's what I think standard-wise should be. And it's really, really hard because, like, for instance, I have friends that like won't date a guy because of height, won't date a guy because the type of career, won't date a guy who's not certain, like educated to their level,
Mhm.
or like all of these things that in the end, or want a private jet, or in the end, none of these things actually matter because they don't come home with you. Like your degree doesn't come into bed with you. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
Like but we have these assumptions that like, oh, like in the Persian culture, like as soon as you're like, oh, the guy's a doctor, he must be like, oh, okay, he must be the nicest guy. But there are plenty drug addict, wife abusing doctors. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
just it's not the end on be all. And so I think what happens is that we have all these expectations from specific standards that we create. And we assume that if those standards are met, we will have a certain lifestyle. And as you date more and more, you realize, like, oh, actually, like someone having a PhD doesn't make them a specific way and won't guarantee me a specific lifestyle. And so you're constantly like swiping left or saying no or whatever to men for certain standards that actually won't impact your life.
Yeah.
So that's a really hard realization. So I've come to the place when I talk to people and also to myself that I say like 3 to 5 is max, and they should be something very specific. Like, I don't want a guy who doesn't work out because I'm so health conscious. I don't want to age badly. It's like so important to me not to age poorly. I mean, you can't control it, but
Mhm.
some things you can control, and one is being physically active.
Yeah.
And that to me is a health thing. So I think that's a fair standard, or like religion things. Like I'm Christian, but for me, I don't care even if someone's an atheist.
Mhm.
So I don't put that on the list. But I know
Yeah.
for some people, they're very religious. They don't like someone else not being religious. Or I have a friend that's a complete atheist and she cannot handle someone talking about God. And so, yes, for her, she won't go date someone who goes to church every Sunday. So it needs to be very specific, I think, to your routine and lifestyle, and not so much on the assumption like something like a specific degree or financial height, like things like that. I mean,
Yeah, it's probably easier the way
mm,
you're talking about it, just having maybe the deal breakers, right? Everything else is open for discussion, but there's maybe instead of thinking about all the things you want, you just think about the few things that you don't want, right?
and how those things specifically impact your life. Like
Yeah.
somebody's like status or some assumption of something that you like. I'm trying to think of something else, like
Well, if
someone
you
owning a home.
if well
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
what if like you want kids and you're okay, like I have to be with someone that wants kids, you know what I mean? Like
That's it. Obviously, a natural deal
I think
breaker.
so for certain people, right? Like Tara and I both, like I've said before, like kids was never a big issue for us. We're kind of like, yeah, maybe, maybe not, right? But
Mhm.
some people, I have friends from high school that they always knew they wanted kids. Like it wasn't even up for debate, right? So I'm sure if they met someone that was flat out like, I will never have kids. Like I dated a girl that's she's like, I will never have kids, right? So I could see someone that wanted the possibility of having kids down the road would be like, well, we must have shut it down here because if you're hard and fast, and some people like they've said to you, like, oh, you'll change, or you meet the right person, you'll change. Like, no, like I don't want kids, and I don't want anyone thinking they can talk me into it, right? Because that ain't gonna happen. But there's not
Exactly.
too many deal breakers, but I mean, obviously some obvious ones, but like the
But
kid
that's a
thing and
natural.
Yeah.
that's the one that you can't alter, and that's not one that's an assumption, you know what
Right.
I mean?
And
That's
people
like
don't get that. Like,
that's what I
you know,
mean.
yeah, like people say to you, "Oh, I'm sure you'll change your mind." It's like, "No, I won't." So piss off. And to so that would be a deal breaker. I can't think of too many for me, like, you know,
Maybe, like, also too, like, the vacation thing, like, that's a lifestyle thing, like, you will never want to do so exactly, like, if you're someone who for instance, like, people who are big foodies, like, I'm not a big foodie, like, I'll go wherever, but I'm not gonna, like, shove everything down my throat and eat and have every cocktail. I'm not someone who every night wants to go out to dinner and, like, stuff my face.
right.
I'm not a very big foodie, and I know people like my sister is a big foodie, she always like wants to have like the best types of food. She cooks the most amazing meals. Every meal has to be an experience. And I
Mhm.
feel bad because I don't have the patience. I'm like shoveling something down while watching TV and she's making like a 5 course dinner. Or not even kidding. Like if you watch her Instagram, she literally makes like a gourmet meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for her family. And that's her thing.
Yeah,
And if
yeah.
she doesn't appreciate it and that's not their lifestyle, and you can make that one of your 3 to 5 things. Like that's a lifestyle. But again, make it 3 to 5. Like it can't be
Yeah.
ever ending. And I really say limit it to 3. And I don't think physical appearance should be in there at all.
As someone
So
who's not attractive, I tend to agree with you.
no one has ever said you're not attractive but yourself.
What about for me? Like another one that came up was like people that want to travel all the time, or like
Mhm.
say you want to travel. Like say your whole mo is like, you know, I work for a bit and then I travel, or maybe you can work from wherever. So you want like my wife has a friend who I think she can work remotely, so she travels like
Mhm.
all the time. I think her kids are grown up or whatever, and she's always traveling, and it's obviously something she wants to do, right? So she met a guy that was like, you know, maybe a firefighter or something that can't leave his job for extended periods because he would lose his job, you know, like and he wants to do that job. Like I could see that being a point of contention because if somebody's dream is to like travel like you know indefinitely and the other person just it can't for one reason or another, I could see that being a deal breaker.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, whatever it is to you personally, let it be 3 to 5,
I think
you
so too.
know?
Yeah, you got to be within
Yeah.
reason. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And okay, fourth question. What topic should be off topic in the first 3 dates?
Oh, that's a good one. It's tough though, because like you say, some stuff's a deal breaker, and you got to get it out, right? There's the usual polite thing is like don't discuss religion and politics, but when you're trying to narrow down someone you may or may not want to date, it might be pretty important to know what their religious sort of deal is. And like you say, they may not want to date someone outside their religion or whatever. I mean, so yeah, I don't know what topic would be off limit. I don't know. That's a good
You
question.
know, I think anything that you get too emotional about on the first 3 dates it should be an off topic. So maybe you can talk about religion, but it's not an emotional thing. That's
Mhm.
great.
Yeah,
I recently went on a date with someone who every conversation was like his feelings towards his relationships with friends, family, past relationships, and everything was very emotional
yeah,
conversated. And I feel like I just didn't want to be there. Like, I'm not your therapist. And
yeah,
I love that type of conversation with people, but not on the first 3 days. Like, I'm happy to be there for people when they need it, but
yeah.
we're just trying to get to know each other. So I think any topic that, like, so I like to know if a guy's divorced and his situation, if he can talk about it lightly and easily and whatever the situation is, great. But if you're going to be overly emotional about a topic, it's one you should avoid.
Yeah, like if I'm in a setting with just a social setting, I'm not going to go off on a
Mhm.
tangent about religion or politics. But if I was dating someone to try and learn more about them, that's a huge part of a lot of people, right? So it's so different for dating versus like social situations, I think.
But it depends also how you come about it. Like I matched with someone recently and he said like, "Oh, like blah blah blah. Do what are your food takes?" And I never tell them like, because I really don't care that much about food. And he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God, I don't really care anything." He's like, "You're not a vegetarian or anything, are you?" And I said, "No, I am actually." And he said, "Oh, to be honest, I don't want to go out with any vegetarians." And I was like, "Okay, cool." It was
I could
fine. It
see
was an
why,
easy
but
topic
like at the same time,
to
I would never let that be a deal breaker. That's
I
crazy.
like I kind of get why because some people are very very big on it. Like I'll even cook meat for you. I really don't care. It's your personal choice, but I get why. But
But yeah,
that was a
it's
deal
got to be hard to
breaker.
find places to eat. I mean, LA is probably not as much, but like, you know, like the average place, it's probably
Honestly, anything you can eat
li- it,
anywhere. People think
yeah,
that.
it
That's why I don't
limits.
tell them.
Yeah, I could
It
see.
doesn't. It doesn't. I swear to God, I can go to a raw sushi place and just get rice. Like I'm good. Like, I
Well,
don't
that's
really care.
like
But
when I was losing when I lost weight, I had something I could get almost everywhere, right? You know, so like
there is like
I wouldn't even bring it up. I just people would pick a restaurant. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I got something I can get wherever, right? You know.
people, you figure it out, like, it's not a big deal. But if I was, like, let's say someone who's, like, a big vegetarian and I'm, like, so anti the other person eating meat and whatever, and I get to our first date and I'm, like, going on and on and on about his choices of what he's deciding to pick and eat at the dinner
Yeah, and that
table,
might have just put
that's
him off, right?
annoying.
Met someone like that,
Exactly.
yeah. Because
Mhm.
not I mean, being a vegetarian or being vegan is not your entire personality, but some people it is.
So that's actually a good way of putting it. Like, if you're, so emotional with something and you're gonna make it a big stance and a big conversation and very, like, heavy your entire personality on a first date, I wouldn't do it. Like, I don't know if the date
Yeah,
that I just went on, if he's maybe not always that emotional, he's not always that talkative, but I don't know, he made it seem like it was his entire personality that all he wanted, and it's my fault. Like, I was telling him how I love helping people and trying to share my stories to better them and blah blah
mhm.
blah, and he took it as like, oh, our first date could be a counseling session, and I took it as it being his entire personality. So
Yeah. You might
I'm all
find
like,
that he's got, a bad experience with that something like that, but then, you know, you meet someone like you who's vegetarian or whatever, but it's not the part of your personality necessarily, you know?
exactly, but the point is, like, it can be a heavy thing, and if I can't be light about it, I shouldn't bring it up. So if you're someone who's like, picketing, or what did they say, like, when you're, like, standing outside with those signs, is it
Oh, yeah, like
picketing?
protesting? Yeah.
Protesting, that's the word. If you're someone who protests it and it's gonna become, like, the entire dinner conversation, it's a heavy topic, religion, any type of lifestyle choice you make, whatever, whatever,
Political,
maybe just,
probably.
yeah, just, like, be low key. Nobody wants to go on a first one
Yeah,
to
it
3
just turns
dates.
into like a question and answer thing on 2020 or whatever, right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah. So,
I
yeah,
would say
anything like
any
you say,
topic.
anything that fires you up, maybe just shelve that, you know, and just get to know each other a bit first.
Exactly, exactly. That's exactly it. Alright, next
Fuck, we're
one.
smart.
We're geniuses.
It's just fucking
And there's no way we're gonna be able to finish these, so we can definitely do the rest of the next episode.
oh, yeah.
Um, all right. So when asking your partner to change something, how many chances should you give them before giving up and moving on?
Fucking coming with big questions here. What man, that's a good question. Like I guess what I suppose
Well,
it
this
depends
you
on what it
should.
is. Like some stuff with my wife, like she has like ADHD, and so some things are never changing. Like it's just the way it fucking is, right? You know, it depends. It depends on how important that the issue is to you. Like, what is it, right? You know, is it picking up after yourself? Is it something more serious? Like, you know,
So let's pick a serious topic. I mean, how patient are you? Like, I mean, obviously not gonna move on from your wife, but if it
yeah,
was dating, or how do you fix it? Something that you guys are working on. How patient are you? How do you come about it?
yeah. I mean, if it's any issue, like it's all about how you approach issues with people. Like, if it's something I don't know, like say they leave all their crap in the car and you come out the next morning, the car smells like coffee or whatever, right? You know what I mean? Like you could, it's one of those things like you got to pick your battles. But like with her, I just started like cleaning shit up. You know what I mean? But she also does stuff for me like I forget to do, right? Like, you know, so I'm not very good with some of this stuff. Let me think here, boy. But yeah, I guess it depends on what it
Do
is
you
and how
get
serious it is.
resentful?
Yeah,
Like,
well, that's
I
the
hate
problem. Like
people
people,
leaving a mess. Do you
yeah.
get
So if you
resentful,
had
and how do you work around that?
Yeah, you'd have to make, you know, it clear as to like as they say, like pick your battles. You have to decide if the something you want changing where that sort of rates and the importance thing. Like, yes, I would like Taryn to close the cupboard doors when she's done with them, but that ADHD people tend to skip the last step of a process. I don't know why. It's just part of it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to die on that hill. Like, I go in the kitchen, every cupboard is open, it's not going to ruin my day, right? So I just let it go. But if it's something more serious, like you know, like she takes my AirPods and they're like AirPod Pros, and she'll take one and use it, and then take it out whenever she's done with it and leave it somewhere, you know. So I'm like driving it home, like, listen, these are like $350. Like you can't just leave one laying around like near the trash, right? But yeah, it totally depends on the thing. Like if it's some, you know, like if they're working on it and it seems like they're making some effort to like move towards fixing whatever the issue is. I mean, you know, you give it more time and chances. But yeah, it's hard to say. It totally depends on the issue, I think.
I think a lot of what you said is interesting because I think,
I think so too.
also, I think if the person is trying to put effort and make an adjustment, Like I know that I hate when people are late. So most of my friends, they're not like that. They're late all the time. They're like, oh, LA traffic, blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
And I know that when those people make plans with me, they try their best and most of the time they're on time. So because I know they're putting the effort, so if they have slip ups, I'm not going to hold them accountable for that either. I also have to make the effort of being patient,
They
right?
meet them halfway,
So
right?
yeah, meet them halfway. So if like 80% of the time they're respecting my time and they're on time, great.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have actually just recently a friend that I stopped talking to because every single time we've made plans, and it's funny because he absolutely hates it when people do that with him. He's always 20 to 30 minutes late.
That's
Always. Like
crazy.
it's just it's completely crazy. And I find like I've explained it numerous times and when if, with a friend you can give it years. If it was someone I was dating, I explained why it bothered me. I said I find it like it's very disrespectful that you think I rush to make sure I'm on time, but
Yeah.
then you don't feel the need that my time matters. So you just take your time and you don't feel rushed. And so I try first, I think you should do a couple steps to make changes. So I explained how I felt. And then moving forward, I said, why don't you pick the times we get together? So if you have a busy day and 7 doesn't work for you, say, in order for me to be on time, I need to be 7:30.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's just fair. So it's like trying to find solutions together on working through a problem. But I actually moved on from that situation because we're doing that, and he still was coming 20 to 30 minutes later.
That's
And then
crazy.
he started completely, and then he started doing things that were even more maddening, where he would say, I'm like 1 block away. And I would be standing downstairs for like 20 minutes just because it was easier for him to pretend he was nearby. So I wouldn't be like messaging, calling what's going on. And we actually made plans. He asked me to help him with something, and I was supposed to be working out at that time. And I said, okay, I'm actually not going to work out. I'll do you the favor
Mm-hmm.
of not doing what I need to do. And I had to work that day. I'm like, instead of a workout, I'll just make it a walk. And it's 45 minutes to 50 minutes for me to walk to the place that you want to go. So you tell me, he's like, okay, I could be there in 30 minutes driving. I'm like, so I call him like, so I'll leave my house now and you leave in 20 minutes. And he's like, great.
Mm-hmm.
I walked, it took me 15 minutes to get there. And when I called him, he's like, oh shit, I'm 15 minutes away. And then I was like, okay. And then I called back like 5 minutes later and I was like, but I think you were at home. I didn't hear you in your car. It's a very loud
Yeah.
car. And he's like, yeah, I'm still, and even after 5 minutes later, he's like, yeah, okay, fine, I'm still at home. And he lived over 30 minutes away.
Oh, that's
So I'm like,
insane.
I took me 15 minutes to come here. You knew I was super busy that day. I changed my plans to accommodate you. And we've had this conversation a few times now. And you still, even when I got there, lied about still being at home and being 30 minutes away. And then still 5 minutes later, you were still at home. Like you still hadn't rushed out the door feeling bad or guilt or anything. He still
Yeah.
wasn't respecting me at all. And I felt like, well, this is to a point where there's absolutely no respect. There's a lot of lying going around. I've expressed how I felt. I don't feel appreciated. I don't feel respected.
You didn't
I've
see any signs of
shared it.
effort made to improve, right?
Nothing. No adjustments. And it's been going on for far enough. So how much time do you give? I feel like you need to express yourself. You need to give it time for change. So I always feel like people should have a month or two for change, because people have habits. And if there's still a lack of respect, then you move on. And I moved on from that friendship. I was like, no, this was the last straw. I've even accommodated in every which way, shape, or form by allowing you to set boundaries, me to set boundaries, me trying to be more patient, telling you to figure it out how it works best for you. For him, working best was him always setting the times, and he still couldn't respect it. So I moved on. I feel like once you feel disrespected enough and not valued enough, and you've done everything you can to share it, then you need to move on from the
Yes, I
situation
agree.
because
You got to cut your losses, for sure. Well, it's interesting you bring that up because I've had a mutual friend of ours, you and I, a mutual friend that I stopped being friends with because of the same issue. I was just like, I can't do it, man. Like it's just a deal breaker for me as a friend. You know what I mean? It's like I'm the same as you. Like I take it as like a disrespect thing and a thing where you just can't be bothered. Like, and you say if okay, you're busy, plans at 7, say 7:30 or 8, and you'll give you tons of time to get there. They'll still be late somehow. So
yeah,
it went on for years, and there was a few real serious run-ins about it. And finally, I said, you know what, getting older now, and I'm tired of trying to convince people to change or that I'm right and they're wrong or whatever. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe being on time isn't important, but it's important to me. So it's obviously not important to you. Fuck you. See you later. Right. You know what I mean? And like that was just it. That was the end of it. So I totally relate. Like for me, it's a deal breaker. If I was dating someone and they were repeatedly late and it was like a thing, I'd be like, fuck this. Like I'm out.
Well, that's the thing too, like, it's a feeling of disrespect, and when you tell someone when you do something, "This is disrespectful to me, it bothers me," and they can't respect it, then it is something that you should give it time for change, express your feelings, and if you they know something is feeling making you like, Terry leaving the cupboards open, she's not trying to disrespect you, that's part of
Yeah.
her ADHD, she's not going out of her way, it's not actually has anything to do with your daily, you know, like expectations of how your day goes, other than the fact that you have to close it. Yes, it's annoying, but it's not personal to you and it doesn't change your day. Like
Right.
someone you waiting around 40 minutes changes your day because you could have done something else for 40 minutes that you needed to get done. Like let's be realistic, we all have busy lives.
Yeah.
And if it impacts how your day goes, then and it bothers you and it makes you feel disrespected, you don't need to waste energy on that person. But I
100%.
do think you should express yourself first and give time for adjustments. And I think 2 to 3 months is enough fairness in someone adjusting a habit.
Yeah, as long as you're seeing like effort and that kind of thing, like you can work with it. But when it's just blatant, like this is who I am, fucking deal with it. Yeah. But I agree. If you with you a couple months and you see they're working towards improving, like 100%. Like as long as there's some effort being made, like I'm totally willing to work with people, right?
Exactly, exactly. Like honestly, like my like best friend, like Massa, she when I first met her, the first time we hung out, she was late, and I was like, dude, I can't do this. Like she was, it wasn't even her fault that she was late. She got confused with the plans, and she came late. She's
Yeah,
never been
and
late since.
but that's not
It's
like a habit thing, right? Obviously.
But she's naturally a late person, but with me, she's not, and she's always respectful, like but that doesn't mean that in the 2 years we've hung out, she doesn't have times that she's, like, a little bit behind. That happens. Sh I have to respect her natural way as much as she respects mine, right?
Yeah,
That's there's effort on her end, and there's for to be on time, and there's effort on my end to be patient. You have to feel that there's a conscious effort on both, but if there's
yeah,
no adjustment and no effort being made, then cut your fucking losses and move on because that's you should feel respected in any type
yeah.
of form of relationship you have.
I've just not to drag it on because I know we're running out of
Yeah.
time, but I I definitely believe firmly in like not wasting energy trying to like change people, and convince people of anything. I'm like, I express my concerns and what I want and what you want, and that's fine. But I'm not going to waste a ton of time trying to convince anyone of anything. I'm like, if someone is a certain way, I'm like, fine, I accept that, and I choose to have you in my life or not, right? And that's it.
Well, that's actually a really big point. I know we are running out of time, but that is a really big point we should bring up because I don't believe that you have the right, not you, but like people have the right to change anybody. I
Hmm.
think people have the right to express what they can and can tolerate within their life with their boundaries. And you either have to accept someone else's inability to follow your boundaries and have them, and you can't expect that person to change it. Like I will accept them the way they are.
Yes.
Or you move on because that's the reality of life. But what you can't do is sit around and keep forcing and forcing, forcing someone to be something they're not in order to keep them around for your comfort and in a
Absolutely.
level that you're comfortable with.
And that's where I'm
So
at in my life now. I just like if it's not happening, I just cut my losses, and it's been fine. Like some friends grow apart, people grow apart. No hard feelings. I still bump into some of these people, and we still have, hey, how you doing? What's new? What's going on, right? But that's as far as it goes, and it's fine with me.
I actually think that's really great. Like I don't think that there should be ever ill will towards them unless it's like a huge thing. Just
Mhm.
being cordial and having healthy interactions with people sometimes doesn't mean having them around all the time. Also doesn't mean having an issue or anger towards them either. So
Exactly,
that's
and cutting your out at the right time will let you continue to be cordial, right? Instead of like running it till the wheels fall
exactly.
off, right?
Exactly. Being resentful. Exactly.
Hmm.
All right.
I hear you,
Well,
Vern.
we'll end it here, and then we'll do the next podcast. I think the first question is, what do you do if you really like someone but the sex is awful? So give you time
Hmm.
to think about it.
Yes,
But
I will. I will think about it.
all right, so we'll do next episode. We'll continue with dating questions. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
See you later.
Bye.